So creating and using custom modules is something that is very useful and also very easy, especially if you've been coding the way I've asked you to code. Now, if you've been doing functions, if you've been creating your custom functions as black box functions where they get their data through arguments and they return the result through a return statement, then it's really easy to take those functions and put them into a module and use them. So let me show you just really quickly in the context of explaining A11 how that works. So let's say I want to create a custom module, right? If I want to create a custom module, I will create a new Python file, and I'm going to call it my module.py, all lowercase. Now, very important to remember how Python calls the modules. When you name your module, this is what you're going to use in the import statement. So, a couple of things. You want it to be a name that is unique and not the same as some other module that you might use, and not the same as any sort of reserved words in Python or functions in Python. You want it to be fairly unique. That's the first thing. Second thing is you might not want it to be super long or difficult to type, because then you're going to get stuck either typing it or renaming it. So I'm going to call it mymodule.py. Notice it's in the same folder as my main script. It's just sitting there right next to it. It's just a regular Python file. And then in that Python file, I'm going to say, create a new function called say hello. And it's going to have one parameter called strname. And I'm going to use that parameter just to say hello. Print hi strname. Okay, so there is my module. I'm going to save it. Now I can close it or keep it open. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to switch over to my other Python file. This is my main script file. Now that I've created that module, I can import it just like every other module. My module, there we go. And if I want to, I can use directory to print what's in that module, just like I did before. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. I told you that some of these special variables were created by the fact that it's a module. You can see that happened with this also. But if I scroll all the way over to the right, you can see the very last thing here is that say hello function. So it's picking up that function exists, which is good. Now let's try using that function from my module. My module.sayHello. And then when I run that, it works. It works just the way it's supposed to. And I can feed it any kind of name, and it works just fine. So here's another thing that I can do in my modules. I can have functions defined in the module, but I can also have constants defined in the module. For example, if I wanted to save the value of pi, right, I could do something like that as a constant. What I'm going to do is put a default name in there, and I'm going to use that default name in my function as a default argument. So now, a couple things are true. Let's comment that out for a second, and I'm going to say print directory my module. Okay, so now you can see I have the default name is something I can access, and say hello is still there. And in fact, I can print that constant if I want to. Oops, I gotta have it from my module. There we go. Now it'll work. Okay. Now, just like other modules, I can say from my module, import, say hello. And now I don't need this. I can just say hello, William, and it works. I can also, because I have a default argument defined there, I can just say hello, and that works using the default name that I gave it. So there's a lot of power, a lot of things I can do. Now I can say hello in any program I want just by putting a reference to my module. But if you think back through all of the assignments that we've done so far, we've done a lot of repetitive stuff, like creating a user interface, creating a menu. Like a lot of those things could be automatically handled using an external module.